Welcome back to Careers Explained. This week we're talking with Kendall Scales Glade about her career path and current role as Chief of Staff at Series Next Solutions. Welcome, Kendall, and thank you for coming on today.
Hey, Jess, thank you so much for having me.
Of course, it's our pleasure. All right, so let's just jump right into it. Could you give us a brief overview of maybe some major stepping stones on your path to your current role?
Yeah, sure. And I'll kind of keep it high level, and I'm willing to dive more into, whatever sounds interesting. But after graduating from Davidson, I went to Wake Forest University and got a master's in accounting. My thinking at the time, I mean, for everybody out there who isn't, wasn't born with, struck immediately with the inspiration of what they want to do for a living. I was, and to a degree, still am one of those people. And so, after Davidson, where I majored in German and economics, I wanted to have a skill set that was a little bit more concrete and could be kind of applicable in sort of all sorts of directions. So I went and got a master's of accounting at Wake Forest, and that was a great program that hooked me up during, as part of the program with an internship during busy season with one of the public accounting firms. And so after I graduated, that internship turned into an offer of full-time employment with Deloitte based in Atlanta. So I packed my bags, I moved to Atlanta, and started working there on their public accounting side as one of the staff auditors, and worked my way up to senior, running kind of the audit projects there. Um, then um, through one of the networking contacts I'd made at Deloitte, who had moved over to the Coca-Cola Company. Um, she started at Coca-Cola through corporate audit, and then turned around and got my resume and gave it to the right people, and so got me in the same, through the same pipeline into the Coca-Cola Company. So I started there in corporate audit. And Coca-Cola is great for many reasons, but one that was particularly attractive to me as someone who was still wanted to just kind of keep keep the path before me broad, and all sorts of, options open up in front of me, was it gives you the opportunity to come in one role, but then you are supported as you move every 3 or 4 years to a new role within the company. It could be within global finance, which is kind of where I started, or it could be broader than that if you found something else um, that was interesting. But corporate audit was one of those. You go and you as part of your work, you're getting to know all these different parts of the business, and the different people who are uh, the different people who are the experts in those specific divisions. And so it's just a great way to just make contacts, to see a lot of things, to gain a lot of experience really quickly. So I spent maybe about 4 or 5 years in corporate audit. Part of that, I started out in domestically in Atlanta, but then had the opportunity to do an assignment in the Berlin office for 3 years. And they needed one more person on the team. They saw that I was a German major and that I was interested in doing some work abroad. And so I went and was based out of Berlin for 3 years and traveled all over as part of that, and all over Germany, and then all over the world. So that was a wonderful experience. Then after that, I came back to another role in Coca-Cola, the corporate capital management. It was mostly a governance role that involved a lot of. Um, I was mostly responsible for um, shepherding uh, big transactions and big deals that needed, different people to sign off on them within Coca-Cola, shepherding through that process, becoming sort of the expert on that deal, making the case to these different subject matter experts, and then ultimately, getting the approval required to move forward with that. So I kind of got this high level view of like strategic moves within Coca-Cola, all these big, opening new factories, or mergers and acquisitions, corporate real estate, all these different things that Coca-Cola was doing. I kind of got a glimpse into that. Um, then I filled in I have several roles within Coca-Cola, and I guess I'll try to speed it up a little bit. But I the one role in Coca-Cola that maybe connects the most to what I'm doing now was I did a maternity leave backfill for a colleague in their venturing and emerging brands department. So that is the department that, if there's maybe a joint venture with an up and coming beverage company that wants to, they're doing something new and different, but they want to take advantage of Coca-Cola's expertise in, maybe distribution or just, scaling. That's the department within Coca-Cola that partners with those entrepreneurs. And that was my first glimpse at the entrepreneurial world and just getting to work, do my finance thing, my Coca-Cola finance thing alongside these big visionary thinkers who just had these exciting ideas and were so passionate. And I was like, wow, this is really fun. I don't know that I'm necessarily the one that's going to have the big idea, but I love that I had the skills to partner with them to kind of make that dream a reality. Because a lot of times, those big thinkers, they just, they don't necessarily, they're kind of focused at the 10,000-foot level and aren't necessarily as passionate about all the little things that it takes to kind of make that happen from beginning to end. Um, so that I kind of got the bug from that role. And then had one more role after that in corporate real estate as the finance manager. Um, and that at that point, that is when I left Coca-Cola. It was my family was at a point where to realize my spouse's own career aspirations, he needed some additional training and it required moving. And so it was heartbreaking. I loved working at Coca-Cola, but the opportunity to go and have him realize a career dream was, I kind of had to take a leap of faith that this was the right thing for all of us. Because along the way, I had transitioned from making just a decision for myself as, a committee of one, going and traveling abroad and doing kind of whatever I wanted to do to, think more of a family perspective. So we moved a couple of times and then finally ended up in New Orleans. And New Orleans wasn't necessarily part of my plan. It I don't know. I had loved living in Atlanta, but I did know that I wanted something smaller. I just wasn't sure professionally what that was going to mean for me. So when we got here and we got settled, I made it my 2020 New Year's resolution to get on LinkedIn and connect with people people in New Orleans and just put it out there that I was interested in whatever the next opportunity was. And in doing so, connected with John Marshall, who is also a fellow Davidson grad. We did not know each other at Davidson, but we knew of each other. We were two years apart and had friends in common. So reached out, got coffee, and he said, it just so happens like just a few weeks ago, I started this business, this thing. And this is like, I'm literally like the end of January 2020. He's like, yeah, 2020 is going to be a great year to start a business. I can just tell it. It's going to be wonderful. Sky's the limit. We're just going to go. And I was like, sure. What, that sounds great. I mean, I was like, this is my opportunity to be an entrepreneur myself. And then and I can talk more about what the current company is, but we are entrepreneurs in service of other entrepreneurs. So I was really excited about you know pivoting my career into that space. So I'd say, yeah, those are kind of the major milestones along the way.
Right, perfect. Thank you so much. And it's so fascinating to hear that you had so much mobility at Coca-Cola. That's really refreshing to hear that such a big company really supports that.
Yeah, it that was one of the things that was most attractive to me as someone who was sort of a generalist starting out. I mean, I really was just looking for opportunities where it just kept the path broad before me, that I could see a lot of different things. And so when I was interviewing at Coca-Cola and hearing from friends and colleagues who had already made the transition to work over there. That was a major selling point, that not only were there opportunities, but it was pretty much I mean, you could say expected. You can also find like the one thing that's perfect for you and stay in that forever. But if you wanted to just keep moving around and seeing different things, I mean, I had the full support of my managers, to make that happen. It just felt like it felt like an environment focused on personal and professional growth.
Right, right. That's super important. So it's really cool to hear that you were looking for that in a job because I'm sure other people are also looking for that. Not everyone gets into a role and wants to stay there in organizations, but it's nice whenever you don't have to move organizations and have that kind of turnover.
Exactly.
Hmm. Very great. So if you don't mind, can we move, like you said, into maybe your current role and talk a little bit about this startup of yours?
Yeah, for sure. So my current company, uh, the one that got started in 2020, great year to start a new business,
Right.
is Series Next Solutions. And I mean, we'll jump ahead to 2023. We did make it through 2020, but Series Next Solutions, um, we say that we get business owners out of the finance seat, and so what that means is we provide fractional or CFOs on a fractional basis, meaning companies that are in what we like to call the awkward adolescent years of their growth. So, for example, they're not so small that like when they're kind of just getting started out, maybe a bookkeeper is fine, or the business owner can just do their own books, and that's plenty. But then they kind of, they get through the startup phase, they prove their business model, they get into that rapid growth phase, and they just have this moment of realization that, their entrepreneurial intuition got them this far, but like just you can't operate on that alone when you're, trying to grow into a new location, or you're trying to hire, a bigger team, or, all these different considerations that you have as you're trying to grow a business. And so what they want to have a CFO, but think at first, oh, that's out of reach. I don't have enough work to keep that person busy full time, and I mean, they're expensive, and sometimes they want equity, that kind of thing. So our value is that we kind of help companies get through that phase where, we'll come in on a fractional basis. So that means we provide them with a fractional CFO to help them, implement accounting processes to clean up their books so that every time they run their financial statements, they're consistent and they tell an accurate story of the health of the company. And then we build them financial projections, basically, in Excel, that allow them to, monthly look into the future and just kind of, I don't know, like think about, basically, throw out ideas about, okay, I want to hire 5 new salespeople in Q3. What's that going to look like for my net income, for my cash flows? What's the impact going to be? Um, it basically quantifies their entrepreneurial intuition, and then they have the fractional CFO there in the meeting to just bounce ideas off of and kind of just say, okay, let me give you the numbers so that this is your journey, but I'm here to just say it's going to be okay, or oh, I don't know that that's the right, he let's look at the projections together. This is why this might not be the right timing, or the right move for you. Um so we provide these fractional CFOs to just have that expertise earlier, in the process of growth for these companies in their growth phase.
Awesome. That is such a great idea and so important. I'm glad that it kind of seems like working in that venture role at Coca-Cola maybe gave you some insight into like really what these startups need, would you say?
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'd say so. There was sort of a transition for me coming from working in these big companies like Deloitte, like Coca-Cola. They have very different needs. I mean, for example, Coca-Cola is a publicly traded company, so their accounting and reporting, and they have big departments, and they have SEC requirements, things like that. And so I did have to shift down to companies. These are all privately held companies. They graduate from us long before they consider going public. I did have to kind of adjust, but um, but there's certainly, my audit background um, taught me, how to walk into a totally new situation with totally new people and figure out the right questions to ask to quickly get up to speed and maybe use my fresh eyes perspective to kind of come at a problem from a different angle than someone who has been, entrenched in that world for so long. So, I mean, the audit taught me that, how to do that over and over and over again. I mean, that's certainly what we do here. I mean, we get new clients all the time, and in new, we're industry agnostic. So, I mean, it'll be a new industry, a new type of business than we've ever heard of, but we have the ability to kind of walk in and get up to speed um, and I think and offer that fresh perspective. And then, yeah, certainly working with venturing emerging brands. I mean, that just sort of whet my appetite um, for working with these founders, which is what we do now. I mean, we love our clients. They're just it's such a cast of characters. I mean, we would know you have to be a little bit crazy to be an entrepreneur, and I completely include us in that as well. I mean, it's you are building this thing, and it feels like, I mean, you feel so wrapped up in it because it's just kind of part of you. It's coming from your brain, and people get really passionate about that. And so it's just fun to be in an environment where everybody is really excited about what they're doing.
Would you talk a little bit about what maybe your steps are day to day in your role working for Next Series Solutions?
Sure. We are gradually, so let me back up. Working in a startup, there's definitely, in the majority of startups, there's definitely that beginning phase where everyone is wearing all the hats and you're just kind of running around doing whatever to get the job done, right? Um, and over the last 3 years, we've kind of gradually moved into distinct seats of responsibility. So, um, like, I have one partner who is the John Marshall, who I mentioned earlier. He's the CEO, and he does a lot of the sales in the company as well, a lot of business development. Another partner who runs our client operations, and so oversees all of, all everything going on with our different clients and the services we provide. And then a third partner who works as one of the fractional CFOs and can give us like on the ground intel of like how our services are working, where we need to improve, that sort of thing. So my role is kind of everything else. It's really all the things that you don't think about before you go in to start a business. Most people go into a business, they've got their core mission, and their skill set is sort of geared towards that, their passion is geared towards that. But there's a lot involved in running a business, like hiring people, like, where are we going to sit and work, keeping your own books and doing your own, financial projections, setting up software systems and making sure, answering IT questions. I mean, they're just, or even like um, you know, dealing with leases or buying a property, things like that. I mean, everything kind of behind the scenes in running the business is what I do right now. I'm a team of one on the internal operations division. I think ultimately, as we grow, I will hire people who are subject matter experts in those things, like HR, or like marketing, for example, IT. I'm definitely not an IT expert, but in the early phases, you just kind of you get yourself up to speed as quickly as you can on what you're doing, um, and just go for it. It That has been a fun thing about doing this role. I have stretched my brain in directions that I just never imagined. I mean, um, marketing at Coca-Cola, I mean, they wouldn't let finance and marketing sit in the same building. I mean, it was just a totally separate thing. But, just I've done a lot of, talking to contacts in my network who are experts in those areas and figuring out, like, what should I be reading? Who, what podcast should I be listening to, or whatever, just to kind of like get all that information in my brain as quickly as possible. So I have learned so much doing this role. It feels like kind of a little feels like an MBA, but just kind of in in the real world.
Right, right. It definitely seems like you're applying a lot of problem-solving skills and really figuring out the, like, hard work that you don't really see behind the curtains.
Definitely. I mean, because I mean, the thing is, my partner who's in charge of client services. I mean, if he has to think about Uh, y he really needs to be focused on the clients. The stuff about like, somebody needs a new computer or, we need to hire even hiring new people, like that takes a lot of work of like screening all these different people, doing interviews, for example. Um, you know, I need to make sure that my partners stay focused on, whether it's bringing new clients in or taking care of the clients that we have, that they can stay focused on that. Everybody has an important role to play.
And would you maybe quickly talk a little bit about what you think that you find challenging about this role?
The challenging thing, compared to working at, the big companies where I have before, um, is that I can't pick up the phone and call like before I had, everybody had their subject matter expertise and I could pick up the phone and call and that was their job and they were very happy to help. There's no one to call here. I mean, when there's a new challenge that comes up that is not necessarily our expertise, we've got to just figure it out. I mean, that is certainly challenging. However, I mean, like I said earlier, I find that very invigorating, um, to have this opportunity to learn, and I'm also very invigorated by the thought of in the future when I can actually hire someone who is very good and very passionate about doing those things, and know that we're in good hands. So, but when that time comes, you know, I, I will have had you know, I will have had my hands in all these different things and have a good institutional knowledge in sort of all of these different areas. So it's certainly all very valuable experience. What keeps me here um, is is that I love that I'm you know part of building this and have been from the beginning. I love that we've been very intentional about the people that we bring onto the team and very focused on, building a team that works well together and building a team that shares a common set of values. Not to put too fine a point on it, but we're all kind of a bunch of nerds who really love what we're doing and are really all focused on personal and professional growth. I mean, it's sort of like a continuous learning mindset here. And I mean, ever since my Davidson days, I've loved surrounding myself with really smart people who challenge me and all I have to do is show up and listen and work alongside them and I can learn so much in just a given day. When I sit here today and kind of look back on even when I just started in 2020, I mean, my own professional evolution has been really remarkable just because I have been surrounded by people who have great ideas, have great work habits, give really good feedback. All those things are, I think really important for continuing to grow.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you for that insight. Do you mind now talking a little bit about any advice that you have for someone who's interested in following the same path that you took or similar paths?
Sure, sure. I mean, my my path seems a little random at times. So I mean, but I think, more generally, um, maybe some lessons that I would tell myself that sitting here, sitting here today, and then talking back to myself, graduating from college years ago. Um, I don't know that I knew the value of building and leveraging a personal and professional network, when I was in school. I think as a classic textbook introvert, I thought of networking and I pictured like some great big event with like 300 people and everybody's like milling around and talking and there's no real structure and it just made me very, made my chest seize up a little bit. But I've since learned that you can certainly do it that way if you enjoy those sorts of things and my partners certainly do, but I have really enjoyed, you know, what feels authentic to me is forging sort of one-on-one relationships over time, meeting people who are experts in their field and building those relationships, keeping in touch, reaching out to them when I need help, and then making sure that when they need help, that I'm there for them. I think Coca-Cola in particular taught me that because I had roles where, I was responsible for bringing all these different subject matter experts together, bringing their expertise to bear on different transactions and things going on. And so, a lot of my roles, a lot of the ways that I advance, in fact, if I think about it, all the different new opportunities that I got along the way, once I started at Deloitte, after that, it was all somebody that I knew that was like, "Oh, hey, I heard about this role," or, "Oh, you're interested in this role. Let me give your resume to the right person and let me tell them about, that you are, a reasonable, competent, pleasant person to work with." So having those relationships along the way has helped me get all the roles since then. I'm just kind of looking at my list, and it's all. I can see very distinctly all the people who made that happen for me, and it was because you know I didn't do any kind of fancy flashy networking. It was just building relationships with people that I worked with over time, and then you know them. It's very flattering, but thinking enough of me to put a little bit of their own professional capital on the line and recommend me. So, even John today, getting starting with Series Next Solutions. I mean, he had heard of me through our different networks. So, and me of him. Another thing I would say is I have loved being parts of teams that fostered a continuous growth mindset. Um, there are some roles out there that's kind of the same thing every day, and that's fine for some people, and you can kind of get in your zen with that, with the reliability. I have just always felt really energized by opportunities to push my brain in new directions, and so finding teams that's that's part of the that's part of the environment and part of that everybody thinks the same way about that. Surrounding myself with smart people who want to just keep growing and don't think they have all the answers has been really important. I think also part of that is maybe about after 5 years into my career, I realized how crucial it is the individuals that you work for and with. When I went to Berlin, I had a manager who was fantastic and told me once in a meeting, he's like, "My success as a manager is measured on you being a me enabling you to hit your career goals and achieve what you want to get out of this role. So, let's have really frank conversations about, what you want and how I can help you get there." And so I thought that was fantastic. And ever since then, every time I've interviewed for a role, I look very carefully at the person that I would be working for and then the team I would be working with. Life is too short to work in environments where you're not on the same wavelength as folks about like what's important and what you want to get out of the role. And if that if that particular role is not right for you, then keep looking because there will be something out there that ends up being the right fit. Um, Trying to think what else. Oh, and then teams working on teams built on open and honest communication and feedback built on mutual respect. I mean, that was another thing. My role in Berlin. It was a really high achieving team, but I think for all the things they were really good at, the one thing they were best at was just sitting down and giving really direct feedback. I mean, part of it can be can be pointed back to German culture and just how they have more of a proclivity towards directness and communication. But and at first it was a little shocking. I'm from the South. I love a good euphemism. I mean, I love to just kind of like wrap up in it like a warm blanket. But it's such a gift to receive really, honest feedback that they are giving to you because they care about you and they care about you advancing in your career. That's something that you can work with. You can get something that 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 outside, that third party perspective on how you are coming across or how your efforts are contributing to the team effort. It's once you have that feedback, then you have the power to do things differently or do more of what you've been doing, whatever the case may be.
Thank you. All of that is so valuable. Thank you so much for coming on today, Kendall. We really appreciate it.